Yo, what's poppin', Bagel Bros, and welcome back to another Patreon rant. If you want one of these for yourself, be sure to give me $10 on Patreon. This one comes from Neon Manta, who says, well, given the recent news about AI and censorship and the removal of specific kinds of media, there's only one important topic to request. Rant about gooning. But not just gooning. Rant about your favorite gooner material, explicit or otherwise, and how you feel about the rampant censorship beginning to take place. Is your favorite material at risk of this siege? Look, I'm not in the business of disclosing my porn habits to a microphone. It was kinda cute when I was at 1,000 subscribers and only like 18 years old, but I don't know, I'm not really comfortable disclosing that stuff anymore. But what I am keen to talk about is the recent wave of censorship that's been going on against porn. And the reason why is because way earlier this month, I watched this video by Lextorius. It's called Why Companies Are Censoring the Internet. Definitely check out his video because I'm going to do a completely butchered version of it off the cuff, having not seen it for an entire month. It's not going to be good. You should watch his video instead for an actual good dissection of what's going on. But essentially, recently in the news, there's been a lot of talk about payment processors and the power they have to remove certain kinds of content from websites. And this is due to websites like itch.io and Steam banning, in Steam's case, certain kinds of porn games, and in itch.io, I believe it's all NSFW games, if I'm not mistaken. And the reason why is due to pressure from payment processors. There's also a bunch of other new stuff like legislation, and don't even get me started on YouTube's new AI. I'll be talking about that near the end of this, but what's important to know is that the reason why payment processors are pressuring these companies to remove NSFW content, which, by the way, it's a lot of different companies. It's not just Steam and itch.io. It's a huge list. But the reason why is because of these extremely fundamentalist Christian organizations that brand themselves in a specific kind of way. They brand themselves as anti-sex trafficking organizations. Now, the reason why they do this is to Trojan horse sort of their actual goals, right? Because there's this one company that he goes into where they started off as very open about their evangelical views, but they realized this isn't actually working. We can't get the public on our side and we aren't persuading anyone. So they rebrand themselves to an anti-sex trafficking organization so that they can hide their actual beliefs, which includes, not great stuff like anti-LGBT sentiment and anti-porn sentiment, which obviously threatens freedom of expression. And so they've been trying to get certain legislation passed. They have this certain anti-sex trafficking law that I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that's the law that makes it so that payment processors are able to be held, quote unquote, held accountable for, certain kinds of stuff that happens on the websites that they facilitate payments from. And this is why, this is why they're afraid of being prosecuted and why they're trying to crack down on the types of stuff that are being, the types of stuff that are happening on the websites they facilitate transactions from. And so it's this huge chain, and what it essentially means is that these organizations that have these regressive views have an inordinate amount of power over what actually takes place on the internet. As well, credit card companies and payment processors can essentially just neuter freedom of expression on certain websites and make it so that there's no way, for people to, Lextorius, I forget if he goes into it in the video. I believe he does, yeah. Where, certain people in OnlyFans making content there have their funds frozen and are unable to retrieve money from their accounts because of what they do, because it's too risque. Now, there's a bit of a problem with I guess the optics of the situation, because it is, very easy to acknowledge that, okay, a credit card company having this much power over what people can do on the internet is bad and is obviously bad. But at the same time, what they're going for now, it's easy to write it off as weird. A lot of it is extremely niche fetish content, and if I'm not mistaken, the catalyst for the current itch.io and Steam situation was due to this game called No Mercy. No Mercy is an extremely degenerate game that most people would look at and say, well, that's not only not my cup of tea, but that's like actively offensive to me. To my knowledge, obviously I haven't played it, so I can't say for certain, but to my understanding, it's essentially a rape your entire family simulator, which most people wouldn't be behind. Most people would look at that and say, hey, that's not that's not something I would want to touch with a 10-foot pole. And so I remember Dolan Darkest of Slop Live, the way he covered this the controversy surrounding this game on the show was to look at it and say, well, that's a weird game. Yeah, probably don't want that on Steam. And it's like, yeah, I get it, but it's not, the problem isn't specifically what's being taken down, it's the precedent. It's not that I'm a super active crusader for No Mercy. It's that I'm an active crusader to stop the precedent that's being set of these companies having so much power over what's allowed to be on the internet and how they can pressure Steam into taking down anything. And remember, the organizations pressuring these payment processors is, they're extremely regressive. Give them an inch and they will try their damnedest to take a mile. And so, once again, these people have extremely regressive views behind them. And all of this is leading into more and more legislation being made around this. I know Britain, the fucking island of trash in the Pacific Ocean, yeah, they have this new law that's going into effect where you have to give your ID in order to access certain adult websites. Man, people really want your ID in the name of protecting children, huh? The British government is saying, hey, we want your ID. We want to, perhaps have your ID connected to your account, know what types of stuff you're watching. I'm not saying they're actively spying on people, but what I am saying is that having it connected to what you watch on the hub it's just not a good feeling. In a similar sense, YouTube really wants your ID. They recently came out with this AI that I believe you have to scan your face, and if you look too much like a child, if you have a baby face, it will then ask for a government ID. Who knows if, with all these companies asking for your ID, it's like, what if a data breach happens? That's not, it just doesn't feel good to have this precedent being set that in the name of protecting children, we're going to ask for your ID at every turn and neuter what you can even do on the internet. I am a firm believer that children, they just shouldn't be online, right? I'm okay with Cocomelon and all that shit being on the internet, but the way I imagine that going down is like a parent showing their child Cocomelon on their, on the family laptop that is protected by a password that said child does not know. I am a firm believer that children should not even consider being on the internet until they're at least 13. And even then, probably waiting until 16 would be good. And that does come with some drawbacks. I know that a lot of the reason why I can think for myself is because I was exposed to so much of the internet from an early age. It really sharpened my critical thinking skills and my ability to think for myself and, acknowledge each situation critically. And so I do really value that about my childhood on the internet. But at the same time, we can't protect the entirety of this place when, people are going around anonymously as adults, posting whatever they want. There's just no reasonable way to completely sanitize that such that a 5-year-old could be on it. And that isn't even a reason, it's not only untenable. It's just not something anyone would want because, I consider my own content to be PG-13. Obviously, some 9-year-olds are going to watch it. Frankly, I don't care because I see that as the parents' responsibility. I think that parents should figure out whether their child should be on the internet and err on the side of caution. I don't think we need to be like, oh, we need to scan your ID at every turn, make sure that children have no possible way to go to porn sites. Like, yeah, obviously there should be some safety checks in place, but in an ideal world, that's just the parents stop that before it becomes a problem. We don't, I'd rather have that be the case, have that system where we encourage parents to be more responsible and maybe have some reasonable restrictions, short of asking me for my ID, which could then be put into an insecure database that could have a data breach. I mean, I've covered data breaches on my channel with the Pokemon video. They are extremely common, and a lot of these companies are not well secured. It's just, I know it's a tough situation because we want to keep kids safe, but I don't think it's worth giving up our privacy for, and I don't think it's worth neutering the entire internet for, and stopping NSFW artists from being able to make a living if these organizations get what they want, and allowing credit card companies to have so much control over each website. Yeah, that's about it. See